The squawking crow from 50 feet above the summit. Empowering your inner chi in overcoming bullying. We are talking about a big subject today, and I don't see a lot of people talk about this. We're talking about bullying here and how to overcome that, how to deal with that in today's episode of The Cliff Diver's Edge. Hey, everybody, and welcome back. I'm Edison, and welcome to The Cliff Diver's Edge, where sometimes in life you're on the dirt's path and the trail, looking, worrying, fearful, doubting, wishing you had support or a mentor or a coach for just 1 inch of guidance before you spring off the perch 50 feet over the water. You walk to the cliff's edge where doubt and uncertainty, worry, concern, fearful of I've never done this before, and those inner demons come out in full tilt. What should I do? I'm scared. I've never done this. How come I'm so unhappy? That's where I come in. So welcome back to the Cliff Diver's Edge, taking you from unhappy to passionately, joyously happy within 30 days. Please consider subscribing and hitting that bell notification so you get notified each and every time my new videos come out here at the Cliff Diver's Edge. And if you could do me a huge blessing, if you see that thumbs up like button down there, go ahead and give it a high five. It lets the people at YouTube know that more people want to enjoy this content, and then they share it and it grows and expands, and we raise up a lot of the people around us, our community, right? We level up everybody. In my practice, I've seen firsthand the devastating toll bullying takes on individuals. It's horrific. The emotional repercussions can linger for years, even lifetimes, manifesting as post-traumatic stress disorder. That's PTSD, anxiety disorders, chronic depression, and so on. Victims of bullying often face an uphill battle in rebuilding their self-worth and confidence. A lot of times never overcoming from this, right? A lot of times people turn to drugs or alcohol or some of the ways out to numb the pain, TV, Netflix, just chilling out, just trying to get through the day. Contrary to popular belief, the trauma of bullying doesn't vanish once the school days ends. Its effects can persist well into adulthood and throughout all of our lives, into our late years as adults when we're 80 and 90. Adults who were bullied during their formative years may struggle to trust others, experience difficulties in forming meaningful connections, and battle with a persistent self of inadequacy. Adults that are victims of bullying in the workplace, and especially the workplace, in the job environment, significantly higher levels of stress, are less productive, and are more likely to either quit their jobs, find lower paying jobs, and find paying jobs that really hit home from this channel, the Cliff Diver Edge, finding jobs that they hate, they don't like, and they do it for a paycheck. Now, being a cliff diver over the years, I've sat on the perch in my share of heckling, name calling, and women and men screaming just as I spring off the rocks barefoot. Names that are just like shouted out as loser, don't slip, uh-oh. One of the reasons I carefully, meticulously research any public quarries or lakes in the USA anymore because of the life-threatening, deadly effects this can happen. From the first day of my actual weekly training lessons for like platform and springboard diving lessons, the smack, the whack, the crash, the hits, the blows, the thwacks, the thumps of my body, all at different angles. You could imagine whacking the brick wall of the water, and it left like bruises from my head, my ears, my shoulders, my knees, my butt, my legs, my ankles. One can imagine a NASCAR driver hitting a concrete wall with no helmet, no gear, no cushion, or even the car he drives as a safety cushion. So I've injured my ribs, my ankle. I blew out my eardrum, losing my hearing and equilibrium for I don't know what it was, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that. But I'm always this creative person that sort of is all about longevity and protecting one's joints, eating healthier and stuff. So there was a solution. After all that turmoil, I designed and wore a padded wetsuit that I upgraded myself. I upgraded it. I sewed padding from the tailbone all the way up the spine. I had another zipper put on it, and I cushioned it really, really well. It was 7 millimeters, not the thin 4 millimeters. My wetsuit hood, I sewed like a chin strap on, and it doubled the ear insulation on both sides. So when I hit the water, that water wouldn't impact my eardrums. So I protected my eardrums, and you can imagine trying to do backflips and gainers and twists and hitting the water. So that was a blessing for me to have that as far as the cushion and the padding, but also to have that layer of insulation for that water. It wouldn't, blow out, my eardrums. Guaranteeing me never to rupture an eardrum or ever to be like bruised or after practice have like this aching back and my hips hurt and bruised from all the water impact. And here's what this did for me and allowed me to do at such a greater level, right? It allowed me to play more freely off the board and off the platform. It allowed me to have more fun, laugh more, and enjoy more without any worry of holding back because I was ultimately safe and comfortable, padded in entirely, and it eliminated doubt, fear, and worry. And even my bodily hurt and pain, all gone, disappeared, and lifted. At times, I was training for several different dives. You had to level up. Sometimes you had to add a tuck, you had to add a twist. If you did a dive, then you'd have to do the gainer and do that same dive. And I remember I was training to do a full double with a full twist. In diving, it's called a 514 2B. So a 514 2B. And I was giving it all my effort for off the 3 meter springboard. I would hit that springboard and launch and try to do this double with a full. And it took 3 weeks of nonstop wax crashes, hitting my back, hitting my face, coming face first, smacking the water. And without my wetsuit or my armor that I had, I would have never accomplished that dive and more dives after that. A little bit of a lesson of what we can do creatively using our resources to level up our work, our environment, our communication with our children, our house, our job, our career, our skill set. Always using resources to level up. Once again, that padding, that armor made me do so many better dives, inward dives and twists. And then I took it to the islands in the Caribbean and Jamaica and had a fun blast doing that. And without that comfort, it would have never happened, right? I would have held back in fear. I would have probably hit the water once, smacked my head or my ear or my face, got a bloody nose, and I'd be like, okay, next week I wouldn't even try that one, and then the following week I wouldn't even try it, and then next thing you know, you're off the 1 meter just doing like fun little, quick little flips and dives in the water. Now, there is the flip side to this, and I want to cover this because it's very important on today's bullying episode. So, it's why am I talking about a wetsuit and this cliff diving and training with this armor compared to bullying and the epidemic of bullying for teenagers, social media, adults as we get into the workforce and your job area, the floor you're on and the people you're around. Well, it has a lot to do with bullying. And for 4 years, when I would go to the cliffs of California and Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, Texas, Illinois, and such other places, I would suit up every time, no matter what. That was my discipline. I would suit up because I knew for that first 30 minutes to that first hour, I was going to try to do those drives, get my timing down, and maybe smack the water a bunch of times until I get my routine down. Then I would change out, wear my regular, swimming and bathing suit, and then, go off into my dives. And then at that time too, I'd, hit the GoPro and, hit the record button. So, I look good doing all the dives. But here's the thing, right? I would suit up and I would say every single time in the hot basking sun of California or Illinois, the hecklers and the rude teens and adults would seem to come out from all the woodwork, calling me names, shouting insanities like, "You look at this guy," and you weirdo," and right, who's all types of things, right? The most disrespectful was when, just as you would take off, right, when you were on the edge, maybe it was a 20 foot ledge, and you're practicing your dive and you're ready to go 1, 2, 3, and you're about to shoot and springboard off, and a lady or a kid would scream out, "Don't fall," or "Oh no," or "Loser." If you can't imagine taking yourself 40 or 50 feet above the water on the cliff diver's edge, where if you miss your dive, your entry, and smack the water, or even worse, you smack the rocks and the things below, you can get killed, hospitalized. So you mentally rehearsed your dive, and like you bent, like you threw your hands up, you launched, and somebody and their college friends, drinking buddies, a lot of these weekenders drinking beer, thinking it's fun, screams out like, "You suck," or "Don't slip." I can't fathom what would it make someone even do that in the world of bullying. And that's what I'm sort of recollecting here on today's bullying episode. I've been through it. I've still been through it. The name calling, the heckling, the shouting infanities. The crazy thing, the negative things that people do to us, 9 billion people in this world over and over and over. No matter where I went, in California, you go over in cliff diving, or in Indiana, you go up to Detroit and do some cliff diving. Everywhere in the United States, it seemed like people come out of the woodworks, and they thought it was like funny or like, ha ha, laugh, but it literally labels what we're talking about today, bullying. Then I did some cliff diving in Costa Rica. So cool, so refreshing, so rewarding, and the people were so helpful. Then Jamaica, then South America, and I never ever had that experience from being in those countries. Never ever did I have hecklers. Never ever did I had somebody yell out and scream out, "Loser," or "Don't slip." The United States is stricken with bullying, and we're going to be talking about that and how we can overcome that today. But it seemed like the foreigners loved being in the presence of like cliff diving. They loved seeing the aerial acrobatics, the water entries. A lot of times they cheered me on. They bought food for me from the little places they were cooking, like chicken on the barbecue. They'd take me home for their lunches, and we played soccer. So it was some really great experiences diving in South America. And from then on, I hardly ever, I should say, like, never really cliff dive in public areas in the United States. Have you ever seen a field goal kicker in the NFL with like 3 seconds left in the game, line up to kick the winning field goal? 50,000 fans screaming, "Miss it," or "Loser," or "You suck," etc. Now the big difference, if he makes it, he's hailed as a champion. If he misses it, he's not really like injured physically or hurt or struck by like a major impact of the rocks or edges or cracking like the water sideways or a little off to the right where he got some bodily damages, right? He doesn't break his hands and his wrists. He doesn't injure himself that he has to be like hospitalized. So sure, he might go through some turmoil of missing the field goal, but nothing like physically demanding. And that's the biggest difference when we're taking on like a solo sport like cliff diving. Never, no one would ever know that you're bullied a lot. And like a lot of people say, "Oh, you're a cliff diver. How fun! Oh, wow, how exuding! Oh, how amazing as far as the heights and the overcoming your fears." But today we're talking about bullying and how people in the United States or all over the world, right, tend to think it's funny to ridicule us and make fun of us, right? So I remember searching a few cliff diving places that were like a halfway's journey, and they were planned. We arrived with family, took the vehicle out there, packed everything, and we looked forward to a beautiful afternoon. And sure enough, when we took our first dive, somehow, some way, the low consciousness, negative locals came out like it was the normal thing to do. They'd yell and scream and make fun of us, experienced divers, right? We'd do, a gainer or a Barani or a really cool first dive. And sure enough, you would have these, people that would make fun of you. And like I said, I would wear a wetsuit, especially with the hoodie, the wetsuit hoodie. And the name calling is just amazing. And we're going to be talking today on how the inner self and the inner chi gets lifted, and how we build up our inner chi to deflect any type of like bullying that we're subject to. All bullying experts agree on one thing: bully is an imbalance of power, right? It's like about trying to assert power over another, right? Wanting to see another person lose while somehow the bully wins, which he never really wins in the laws of karma. And this dynamic is evident in schools, workplaces, and social settings. And it doesn't go away, like we were talking about before. It right, doesn't go away. It's in grade schools, it's in high schools, it's in college, it's even worse in college. And then as you get into the workplace, it's even worse, because if you take a position and you're saying, okay, this is going to be my position for 2 or 3 years, right? And you're stuck with a condescending boss and a group of people that, do things, in a negative way, or, bully you, whether it's at lunch, on your breaks, whatever it is. Right? You're at the workplace. You're thinking, wow, I got to deal with this somehow. Unlike school, or we could call the principal, we got to deal with this somehow for the next 1, 2, or 3 years. Right? How do we do that? So that's the tough laws of the world and the areas of the workplace. In high school, and even like before that in grade school, I was bullied. I was beat up. I was picked on. Stuff was thrown at me over the years. I was punched at recess. So my parents put me in martial arts. And the amazing thing about attraction, it was this martial arts school was all focused on character building lessons. And that was very, very rare in the 80s. So along with techniques like blocks and punches and kicking and sparring, the instructor gave us homework and handouts. Some of these homework and handouts were things like why I like myself. What is your number one goal for the year? What do you most like about being you? Pretty amazing stuff, and pretty unique stuff in how that was presented back in the 80s without apps nowadays or phones, or it was literally printed sheets. So going back now to the young, fearful days of school, recalling back, there was a girl named Pam, and she was the quintessential alpha female, always looking for ways to assert her dominance over the others. Pam's behavior was a textbook example of dominance behavior. She thrived on making others feel small, feeding off their reactions, ridiculing boys' and girls' dress attire, or if they answered a question in class, right or wrong, she was never punished for blurting out her bullying or harassment statements. So she kept doing it. And often she would get her obedient football players, right? Her boys to trip the other boys and girls she didn't like, and several times knock my books down and spit in my food at lunch. So that is the recollection of my bullying when I was young in grade school and continued in high school. So all of us have personal space, right? We acknowledge just that we have some aura or a space. And that personal space or bubble, or like the ancient martial artists call chi or prana, your surrounding energy. Chi energy moves through the body like breath and blood, and it's nourished by a healthy diet, enough sleep, and movement practices. However, its qualities go beyond the physical or the tangible. It can be described as the purest energy that arises out of consciousness, awareness, and stillness through you into your body and all expressions of life. So in short, chi or prana is the essence of your true self. When one adds psychological focus and confidence to the physical skills and synergies, the effects, the feelings, and the experiences can turn out quite amazing. I would say that martial artists or any other persons with a big chi are those able to focus their mind and exploit synergies in a movement or technique they prefer. They are able to flow in that state where body and mind encompass the situation and become mutual self-aware, disregarding any outside, what would you call it, outside feats, outside happenings, or outside influences. Isn't it? So why, as a super amazing cliff diver that you are, should you concern yourself on an inner bubble, your chi, in a conversation about bullying? So this bubble, there is your chi, influenced by how we think about ourselves. And it's also the size of this bubble. It's influence about what we perceive others are thinking about us. So there's two things influencing this personal space or this bubble or your chi. So if we think down about ourselves, that personal space gets smaller or tighter or more fearful. If we think other people think down upon us, that also influences it to get smaller or tighter or fearful. The smaller the bubble is, or your chi, the more inner critic comes out and halts, stunts, and slows you down. It slows and stunts you shining with your joy and your freedom. So here's an example from a psychologist on the war with your inner critic and one's own inner bully, okay? So example number 1. Maggie forgot her friend's birthday and didn't get her a gift. Now the inner critic starts to come out. And the inner critic says something like, your friend was right to be upset at you for forgetting her birthday. You didn't even text her. It was selfish and inconsiderate of you. Now Maggie responds, I don't know how I forgot. She's one of my best friends, and if I didn't remember, I'd have driven 50 miles to see her. Now the inner critic, right, your inner voice, says something like this back. What does that mean? You forgot. Everything is always about you. Then the inner critic continues, right? She was hurt, for sure. This could have all been avoided if you weren't so self-centered and not caring. Then the inner critic continues to say, it says, why do you always have to be forgetful and such a bad friend? Now, Maggie's already listening to this inner voice and this inner critic, or this bully, and responds by saying, you're right, I'm a loser. I never treat anyone good, and that's why I never have any friends. See how that inner critic inside of us and that inner bully started getting smaller and smaller and us started diminishing? Now, what do you think is worse? The squawking crow from 50 feet above the summit? Caw, caw! It's flapping its wings in laughter, heckling at you, calling you names. As you, the diver, are almost in full momentum of catapulting your most beautiful dive and doing your no splash rip entry into the crystal clear Caribbean bathwater. Or your inner critic downplaying you, conditioning you to a lower level, a smaller inner bubble, your smaller inner chi, or your lower chi. Which of those two are better? Write them in the comments down below. If you haven't, shoot a comment or a like down below about this issue, addressing a huge concern, and I'm so glad I'm talking about it today as far as bullying. I like to dive deeper into a lot more meaningful subjects as well, instead of doing the popular subjects or the subjects that bring out a what would it be called? It's a viral. They're very popular or viral. How important is taking a few steps in this Cliff Diver's Edge lesson today, and just taking a few steps and writing them down and applying them in your life, and how you can overcome bullying. So thank you for being here and shooting some comments and likes down below for maybe how you were bullied in your past, how you've overcome bullying, or what you like in today's segment, right, in the Cliff Diver's Edge. Martial arts is driven with a purpose and goal setting, and like no other sports or activities in a child's life or an adult's life, are things driven like this. 16 steps. Each step gets a little tougher. We build self-discipline, we build accomplishment and self-esteem as we get through each one. In each of my belt graduations, I had to write out where I was the last belt and who I became in achieving my new belt. And how amazing was that? Like I said, this was back in the 80s. Nowadays, character development is all through martial arts. But back then, we had to write little things out. I remember the little things with the lines, and you had to write it out and give it to your mom, and they would have to write things out. What has your son accomplished? Think of your son last year. And what has he done differently now, because he's, a blue belt or a green belt, right? So it often amazed my mom and my dad what I wrote out and how I was negative, how I was afraid to do something, but 6 or 9 months later, I would tackle things or do things on my own with initiative and not worrying or carrying about if I failed, if I did it wrong, and things like that, or looking for the approval of friends and stuff. So overall, how my bubble and my chi started to grow and expand, right? That inner critic started becoming more confident, more alive, and more like self-worthing. Keep in mind the negative world we live in on this planet, the bullying and the picking on, it never stops. It never stops in my years and years. Even now I see the kids getting bullied, and me, myself, I'm continuous bullied. I would say that martial arts or any other persons with a big chi are those able to focus their minds and exploit the synergies in any movement or technique they perform, right? And we zone in. A lot of people say if you're in the flow state, right, nothing matters. Nothing matters, right? If you love sewing and knitting or cooking and people are yelling at you and you're on a cooking show but you zoned everything out because they say, you got 2 minutes left and you're not going to do it. And, they're screaming at you. You don't care, right? You're zoned in, that flow state where body and mind encompass the situation and become mutually self-aware with no distractions. Almost like the field goal kicker I mentioned in the beginning of this video. When I researched how field goal kickers rehearsed, I didn't find a lot of information on the NFL, but I found out that the ones that I found for the field goal kickers, they each had their own techniques for zoning out the crowd. They have different mental things they rehearsed over and over and over to zone out the crowd, focusing on their ritual and discipline to winning the game, right? To kicking that winning field goal between the uprights. So now we're going to go into the second example of Maggie. So we're going to go into the second example of Maggie and see how the levels changed here. See how that inner chi changed and shifted. Okay, and if you want, jot down some notes or jot in your journal how this shifted a little bit and how we could overcome this negative like peer I'm sorry, not peer pressure. It is negative peer pressure, sure, if it's people we're hanging around with and they're negative and we follow in suit and don't say anything, right? But how this negative bullying that's happening in the United States, in Europe, and wherever else. Okay, so let's look into this second example in Maggie and bringing out her inner chi, how she is speaking up for herself rather than allowing the conflicting parts of herself, making her smaller and smaller and more fearful and, shall we say, more useless and useless. A lot of times when we're bullied, we think we're useless, right? No, we're a victim, we're useless. So the inner critic. Your friend was right to be upset at you for getting her birthday, right? Her friend had their birthday that she forgot. You didn't even text her. It was selfish and inconsistent of you. That's those inner demons, right? That inner critic. Now, Maggie, right? Maggie, here's her response. Take note if you're journaling right now. Maggie's response. Heads up, everybody. My inner bully is about to make a speech. You all remember her last speech that totally bombed. Now we go back to the inner critic. The inner critic says, don't fool around and try to downplay what happened. Your friend was very hurt, and you were very, very selfish. Maggie's response, notice this inner chi. You have some nerve. Selfish. What have you ever done for someone to brighten their day? I didn't think so. Nothing. The inner critic responds. You are always a bad friend, thinking about yourself, doing what you want, not about others. And this inner critic might be coming up in your mind. It might be coming up in front of the mirror. Maggie, don't be ridiculous. Now she starts to recall the positives. Don't be ridiculous. Remember John's graduation, Teresa's wedding, Carol's quitting her job party that I threw? I'm a great friend, a friend everyone calls because I'm always there for them. The inner critic, silence, starts to fade away, right? Maggie now starts to, that inner chi starts to grow and expand, and that confidence starts to grow, right? So obviously the challenge of loving oneself becomes easier when the inner bully is no longer able to get in the way of holding us down or subjecting us to criticism, sarcasm, and self-condemnation. Simply put, we could neutralize that inner bully as we bring our inner chi more clearly into focus. Psychologists and counselors believe that negative self-talk needs to be replaced by self-positive, like affirmations or positive self-talk. Like affirmations like I love myself, I'm a great friend. Maggie could have said I'm a great friend. I have many friends. Everyone loves me, etc., etc., etc. Those are like affirmations. This inner chi is quite different, and there's a gray line that separates this. This inner chi is quite different from affirmations. Very, very different. But the power to calm an inner storm lies with the self. When we connect with our authentic self, we're able to shut down the inner critic while establishing inner harmony and peacefulness. We can now start to expand our reality of like goodness and like inner beauty, value, and strength. A deep trust in or a knowingness of our worthiness now guides us, not positive self-talk or affirmations. So, to take this one step further and to really go into why this inner chi is so much different than affirmations, I like myself, I'm great at my job, everyone loves me, and stuff, I'm going to take into martial arts as well. So, all you thrill seeking cliff divers understand throughout the 6, 9, or 12 months on the new belt journey in martial arts, the homework assignments didn't say, like, write out, I'm a great martial artist. My kicks are lightning fast. I'm faster than Chuck Norris or Bruce Lee. Like, those would be like positive self talk affirmations. So, do you see the difference? The homework assignments had me write out back then, how did you treat your mom and dad 9 months ago? What are some of the things that you avoided doing, right, and didn't take action on 9 or 10 months ago, right, before that last belt graduation that you earned? They would have my dad fill in, what changes have you seen in your son since, 1 year or his last belt achievement? What was one or two things that your son did, but he never did before? Right? One things that he never did, but he took the initiative to do 9 months later, right? And this new belt graduation. What are some things that he's doing ritually that you're really impressed with your son? So that's the amazing difference of when we start outlining our successes and writing down and journaling our change and how we developed in the last year compared to just writing affirmations. Here in the Cliff Diver's Edge, I have used the famous saying over and over and over when we're discussing all the subjects of self-esteem and self-reflection, inner worth, self-love, and those type of subjects. And it goes something like this. When you walk by somebody, they are thinking exactly the same things about you as you are saying to or about yourself as this person sees and feels you walk by them. So the smaller bubble or this chi, the more inner critic comes out, right? The smaller it becomes, the more the inner critic comes out, right? I guess as it gets smaller, right, it allows more space for the negativities to come out that says, you suck, you never did this, you won't be able to accomplish this, you've never done this, how dare you say you're able to do this, you're such a bad friend, you're such a bad wife or a husband, right? That inner critic seems like the smaller it gets, it allows for that negative space to be filled in, by that. I have a client of mine, Marilyn. She was a data analyst, and she felt her personal space shrink whenever she encountered her micromanaging boss, like bullying or confronting her, right? She had a way of just making her feel down. Her work wasn't good enough, and things like that. So she learned techniques to expand her personal space, her chi, her prana, and she started raising her bubble or expanding her bubble. And it started to grow over the months. Her boss didn't stop her nitpicking and her micromanaging. However, Marilyn brought out her inner winner cliff diving confidence by writing out how far she came, what it even took to get this position, her small and challenging victories over the last few years, journaling her job task and her victories, and how she created this mini community at work where each other supported each other, and they really start building up the friendship inside of the workplace. She silenced her inner critic by immediately shouting back, "Oh, no, you didn't. Not today," and shouted her inner victories, her wins, and her accomplishments. These changes in her chi and her inner critic projected confidence from the inside out and made her less of a target and seen as a positive group leader at work. And I guess that's what I haven't said before, right? When we start building up our inner confidence and our diminishing our inner critic, it's amazing how we become less susceptible to people like attacking us. If that's not the case, maybe we're just zoned in, right? When we're cliff diving, we're zoned in. You can call me any kind of name in the book, right? You almost got your earplugs on, and bam, I'm off doing my dive. Run up the cliff, do it again. Someone calls me a name. Someone calls me blah blah blah. Someone says, "Hey, you look funny. Hey, right, yeah, and right." And hopefully, right, you're just zoned in, doing your things. Those uh-ohs or don't slip, right? You're just zoned in like that, like that. Place kicker, the field goal kicker in the NFL. Another aspect we're going to dive into right now in the defense against bullying involves concentrating on personal growth and well being, like some of the quotes from Oprah Winfrey, rather than external validation. So let's dive into external validation. External validation can bring upon more bullying. As Harvard Psychology says, if you fall prey to over giving, over gifting, and overly seeking others to like you, you are 79% more likely to fall into being bullied. That's crazy. That's 80% more likely. So if you fall prey to giving often and can't find that voice or that power to say no, right, you're 80% more likely to get bullied. Counseling advisors teach overcoming the people's Counseling advisors teach overcoming the people please. Oh, there we go. Yeah, this line, I got you. Counseling advisors teach overcoming the people. Counseling advisors teach overcoming the people-pleasing habits and outside validation habits to overcome being taken advantage of. Being given more and more work with no more increase in pay. Not having the courage to say no to a wife or a husband or family members that consistently request like time and money and favors and errands. Developing this mindset can significantly reduce the emotional impact of bullying and increase your personal powerful chi. Think you are an approval seeker? Achieving a balance between internal and external validation is crucial to having a healthy self-esteem and having that inner, what we call that inner chi, that inner self chi grow and expand. You may be searching for too much external validation if you find yourself doing some of the following. So I listed just some of the following here at the Cliff Diver's Edge. Some of those are feeling guilty about setting boundaries with others, overachieving in attempt to garner praise from others, jumping from a relationship to relationship without taking the time to heal because you feel you can't be alone, having difficulty making decisions on your own without someone else's input, saying yes to tasks and plans you'd prefer saying no to so that you can maintain approval from others. The inability to disagree with or challenge others due to fear or being judged or abandoned. Comparing yourself constantly to others and feeling a chronic sense of lack without an acknowledgement of your unique strengths. Becoming emotionally distressed when you're not the center of attention, and frantic attempts to recenter yourself. Punishing yourself for not being chosen or acknowledged in contexts such as friendships, schools, and at work. Fabricating or exaggerating life circumstances to gain sympathy from others. Take a time just to go through that list and see if those things are coming up for you. If some of those things are true in your life and who you are. And see if that is part of you for your inner critic and wanting that outside acceptance and acknowledgement, or you're more on the opposite side of those. Now's a good time to take time to go back in time right now to all the way back to when you were 3, 4, 5, 6, way back in your childhood. If you were routinely ignored as a child, Are there ways that you can tend to yourself in a more nurturing way as an adult rather than seeking the approval or recognition from others? Now, this may include, and we've covered it on the Cliff Diver's Edge, regularly telling yourself you're proud of yourself and you believe in yourself, journaling all your successes and wins, and also using self-care to uh, using self-care to self-validate. And also using self-care to self-validate, like trying to replace your excessive validation-seeking behaviors and thoughts with like self-soothing methods that work for you, such as mindfulness, meditation. A lot of people like yoga or like a hobby or a sport, bike riding, swimming, chess, or some type of activity. A 2011 study found that 8 weeks of this could physically change the brain, increasing gray matter in areas of the brain related to decision making, empathy, and emotional regulation. Practice saying no. Surround yourself with nourishing, supporting networks and detach from invalidating people. And that's a big point I wanted to make here. If you find yourself catching yourself saying, look, I do put that person down, or I do put myself down, or I do make fun of my husband, my wife, my friends, socially, or privately, right? Catch yourself from doing that, apologize, and detach from that habit ever again, right? So as we're trying to grow and expand our own inner critic and our own inner chi, we have to make sure that we don't project it onto others, and others finding us to be a bully and us to be, the person that they call, a bully in their life. You have to have some level of, number one, independence, and number two, solo self-image to be amazing as you are. The beautiful rock cliff jumper, diver that you sit here and came to be. We as cliff divers don't look over to the beach and say, look at me. We don't look to get and receive praise from the naysayers or the onlookers, right? We don't look for them to grab out their cameras and take pictures. When you just get to the beach, or what they call La Playa, right? And you only put in like 7 dives, and all of a sudden a family member says, hey, let's go, we're getting lunch. You don't put yourself last and your goals last and say, oh, hold on, I'm coming with you. We don't join a group of 6 basketball players or 12 football players and run on the field together and hope if we have an off day, somehow one of them, men and women, will have my back and they'll bring the team to victory, and I'll give them an IOU. Here at the Cliff Diver's Edge, you and me, especially you, we rise from the internal push, the daily discipline, and the splash of the water after you performed a dive you never accomplished before. Your validation comes from the inner mirror you holding in front of you each morning and the night before you go to bed. We become a great cliff diver by raising your inner chi and inner prana every day, every week, every month, so we can step on a higher cliff tomorrow and do a performance that's 2 times as difficult next week, next month. That's what we live for. That's what we drive for, that individualism, that solo sportsmanship where it's up to us to figure this out, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's in a job, whether it's in a health crisis during life. We're that inner cliff diver facing that cliff and taking action on you, and you becoming greater, more beautiful, more alive, and such a more beautiful person. Look, I haven't even thrown a pebble in the ocean here on this magnificent subject of bullying, like not even close. And I wish to only give more and provide more videos like this, like on the enormous issues that millions of us face daily, and the trauma that hurts me and just kills my heart when you see people and family and friends and schools and workplaces dealing with bullying, and how we could individually and as a group and as a community and as a state and a nation, right, overcome the epidemic of bullying. Through these cliff diver edge stories and examples, we see that it's possible to transform the power dynamics and emerge stronger. And individuals thrive with confidence and resilience, no matter what rough waters or people are around us. It's time to take a stand against bullying. Educators, parents, job owners, company owners, managers, communities, city officials, governments must work together to provide the necessary support and resources. Let's teach our children the importance of self-esteem, self-worth, self-focus, just like we were doing today, right? That inner chi, and growing and expanding our own inner chi, how we are changing and immediately taking action on that inner critic and reciting everything that made you great, made you, accomplish great things, and how you overcome all your battles in the last 10, 20, 30 years. Together, we can create an environment and a community and a nation where an environment where everyone feels valued and respected. A community and a place in the world where we're on the cliff, no matter what it is. If it's a 20-foot cliff, it's a 50-foot cliff, it's a 100-foot cliff, and you're about to do that triple with the 2.5 twists. If it's a health issue, if it's a job issue, if it's a child issue, if it's any other issues, right? Together, we could be on that cliff, not being afraid of being called names, being called, made fun of, screamed at, heckled at, and shouted upon. We could reverse the world we live in, where it's an uplifting world, a supportive world we live in, and almost like my body armor that I had for when I first started training with the wetsuit, right? We could build this body armor up of positivity, support, and encouragement in this world. More and more importantly, I'm not an authorized health expert or a psychologist. So please, if you need to reach out to a mental health professional who can be a great resource to help you along your journey, along your path, for support, for step-by-step processes, and that type of level, if you're looking for support but not sure where to start, you can check out Psych Central's hub for finding mental health support. One of the most unwavering paths to finding your ikigai, your purpose, your significance, is to master the art of carving out your own beauty, shining through the imperfections. This journey is a testament to your determination to shape your destiny, and it's a pursuit that leads you to the profound wellspring of passion and purpose in your life. I've taught hundreds of individuals and organizations how to zero in on their truest, most passionate meaning in life, going from a once cloudy, murky hurricane of confusion to horse racing, blinders on, full tilt, zing, adore, zeal, ear to ear, smiling in and out throughout life, glowing and radiant. You are worth the work and love to hop inside the cliff dive. You are worth the work and the love to hop inside the Cliff Divers Metamorphosis from Blurred to Crystal Clear Academy down below and get started in the. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you haven't already, and subscribe to this beautiful Cliff Divers Edge channel. Please like and comment down below. Let me know your thoughts as far as this bullying and some of the steps we outlined today in overcoming bullying. How are we talking about ourselves? How we can bring out that inner critic and making sure we really exude our inner chi and our prana. If you found this video helpful and useful below, I love hearing from you. So share it with your friends. That friends are going to share it. That person's going to share it with their loved one. And soon we're going to impact a huge community of uplifting the world. I'll enjoy spending the next video with you, and we'll see you next time on the Cliff Diver's Edge.